Everybody like and subscribe, praise the bell icon. Story number 1.
It was around 11:30 p.m. when Alex was driving home from a late-night shift at a diner just outside Albuquerque, New Mexico. He took the long desert road home because it was quieter, even though the highway would have been faster. Something about the silence of the desert at night felt comforting. Until that night. About 30 minutes into the drive, he spotted someone on the side of the road ahead, standing completely still, barely lit by his headlights. As he got closer, Alex realized it was a man with a hood pulled over his head, standing stiff, with one arm slowly raising to thumb a ride. Alex hesitated. He usually never picked up hitchhikers, especially not at night. But something about the man's posture, the eerie stillness in his stance, it was unsettling. Still, against better judgment, he slowed down. The guy didn't move as Alex rolled down the window halfway. "You need help?" Alex asked. The man didn't speak. He just nodded once, slowly. His face was obscured in shadows, but Alex noticed the man had no visible luggage or even a backpack. It didn't sit right with him, but the road was so empty, and he figured maybe the guy's car broke down. He unlocked the passenger door. As soon as the man got in, the air felt colder, like the heat from the vents wasn't reaching that side of the car. Alex glanced over, but the man just stared forward, hood still low, hands in his lap. No greeting, no explanation. They drove in silence for a while. Alex tried to ask where he was headed, but the man only muttered, "Just down the road." "How far?" No answer. Alex's nerves started to spike when he noticed the man's shoes were caked in dried mud and something darker, almost like blood. He kept glancing sideways, trying to get a better look at the man's face, but it remained shrouded in shadow, no matter how many passing signs they drove past. Finally, about 10 minutes in, Alex had enough. He pretended he needed to make a phone call, pulled over, and stepped outside to get better reception. He left the car running. As soon as he shut the door behind him, he took a few steps away and called 911. He explained everything: the silence, the weird demeanor, the blood, or whatever it was, on the guy's shoes. The dispatcher said an officer was nearby and would meet them. When Alex turned back to the car, the passenger seat was empty. He opened the door, confused. There was no sign of the man anywhere. No sound of footsteps in the gravel. No trail. Nothing. He hadn't heard the door open. Hadn't seen him walk off. The car was still running. Doors still locked. Then Alex noticed something chilling. Long, wet handprints smeared along the inside of the windshield, like someone had pressed their face and palms hard against the glass, watching him. Panicking, he jumped back in the car and sped off. He didn't stop until he reached a gas station about 15 miles ahead, where the sheriff's deputy met him. They searched the car top to bottom, no signs of forced entry, no personal belongings left behind. But the deputy, an older guy with decades on the job, went pale when he saw the handprints. He looked at Alex and said, "You're not the first person to report a hitchhiker on that stretch. Matches stories from years ago. Always a guy in a hood, always at night, and always disappears. But those who pick him up, some of them don't come back." Alex never took that road again. And for weeks after, every time he got in his car at night, he'd catch glimpses of something or someone in the rearview mirror. Just for a second. Just long enough to see a hood and two eyes staring back.
Everybody like and subscribe, praise the bell icon. Story number 2.
Back in 2016, I was driving from San Antonio to Lubbock, Texas, to visit my cousin who had just gotten out of the hospital. It was a long, flat, desolate stretch of road with nothing but darkness and the occasional gas station blinking like a weak lighthouse in the night. I left late, something I regretted almost immediately, but I had promised him I'd be there by morning. Somewhere near Sweetwater, around 2:30 a.m., I saw a figure on the shoulder of the road, barely illuminated by my high beams. A woman. She was wearing a white hoodie, soaked from what looked like a recent storm that I had somehow driven around. Her thumb was out. Her head was low. It was the middle of nowhere, and she looked like she had no other options. I slowed down. Against my better judgment, I pulled over. She didn't say a word as she opened the door and climbed into the passenger seat. Just nodded, dripping wet, and stared ahead. "Where you headed?" I asked. She whispered, "As far as you can take me." Her voice was dry and cracked, like someone who hadn't spoken in days. I thought maybe she'd been out there for a while. I turned the heat on for her and offered her a bottle of water, but she didn't even look at it, just kept staring ahead with this blank expression. After about 10 minutes of silence, I noticed something strange. Even though she was soaked, the seat under her wasn't getting wet. Her clothes looked damp, sure, but the fabric of the seat stayed bone dry. I told myself maybe it was just the material or my eyes playing tricks in the dim glow of the dash. Then I caught her looking at me through the corner of my eye, not turning her head, just her eyes. Her gaze was cold, unblinking. I forced a smile and asked if she was okay. She didn't answer, just kept staring at me like she was trying to figure something out. The next 15 minutes felt like an eternity. The air grew thick, like the car was being pressurized. My radio began crackling with static. I reached to change the station, but all I got was white noise, no matter which dial I turned. That's when I heard her whisper again, but her lips weren't moving. "You shouldn't have stopped." I slammed on the brakes. The road was completely empty. I turned to her, heart hammering, but the passenger seat was empty. No sign of her. The door had never opened. The water bottle I'd offered was still there, untouched. The seatbelt was still fastened. And then I noticed something else. My hoodie, folded neatly in the back seat earlier, was now sitting in the passenger seat, damp and warm, like someone had just taken it off. I floored it and didn't stop until I reached Lubbock just before dawn. I told my cousin what had happened. He went pale and asked me to describe her. I told him everything. He pulled out his phone, opened a local news site, and scrolled through a few old articles. Then he showed me a photo of a woman. Same hoodie, same face. She had gone missing on that same stretch of road 2 years ago, caught in a flash flood. Her body was never recovered. They say sometimes if you drive that way after dark, she still hitches rides, not because she needs help, but because she wants to punish the ones who try to give it. To this day, I don't pick up hitchhikers, and I never ever drive that road at night.
Everybody like and subscribe, praise the bell icon. Story number 3.
I was 26 when it happened. I had just moved to Nevada from Oregon and was heading to my new job in Las Vegas. It was a late September night. The desert highway was dead silent, and I had been driving for hours under nothing but moonlight. I'd always been comfortable driving at night. It's quieter, calmer. But this night was different. The air felt heavier, and the road ahead seemed darker than usual, like the headlights couldn't quite cut through the black. I was about an hour outside of Las Vegas when I saw him. A figure walking along the side of the highway, his thumb out, slow and deliberate. At first I wasn't going to stop, but something about the way he was walking made me hesitate. He wasn't slouched or desperate. He walked like he had all the time in the world, like he knew someone would pick him up eventually. Against my better judgment, I pulled over. He approached the car slowly. His clothes were dusty, jeans, a faded flannel, and scuffed boots. His face was shadowed under a baseball cap, and he didn't say a word as he opened the passenger door. Just nodded once and got in. "Where you headed?" I asked. He turned his head slowly, like it took effort. "Just down the road a bit," he said in a flat, almost monotone voice. That should have been my second warning. We drove in silence for a few minutes. I tried to make conversation, asked if he was local, if he needed water. But he only responded with one-word answers or silence. Eventually, I gave up. The only sounds were the tires on pavement and the occasional creak from the passenger seat as he shifted. I noticed his hands were filthy, like he'd been digging in the dirt. His fingernails were cracked and black underneath. I glanced at them, then back at the road. When I looked again, he was staring directly at me. Not looking, staring. "You shouldn't have stopped," he said, his voice suddenly colder. A chill went down my spine. I gripped the steering wheel a little tighter, trying to keep my eyes on the road. "Excuse me?" He didn't answer, just kept staring at me with this unreadable expression, like he was studying how I reacted. Then he smiled, just barely. Not friendly, not amused. It was the kind of smile that meant something else entirely. I began to regret everything. I calculated how far the next gas station might be, wondering if I could kick him out safely. But before I could make a move, he asked me to pull over. "Right here's fine." There was nothing around us. No houses, no signs, just desert. I don't see anything, I said. I'll walk, he replied. I slowed the car, hesitating. He reached for the door handle, then turned to me one last time. Be careful on this road. Some people don't come back. He got out and shut the door quietly, almost politely. Then he walked off into the desert, into complete darkness. I watched him disappear in the rearview mirror. But here's the thing. I never saw a shadow. No silhouette against the moonlight. It was like he just dissolved into the night. I hit the gas and didn't stop until I reached Vegas. My hands were trembling. I didn't tell anyone for days. 2 weeks later, I was browsing a local news site when I saw it. An article about a man who'd been missing since 1997. The photo was old, grainy, but it was him. Same flannel, same hat, same boots. According to the article, he vanished while hitchhiking on that same stretch of road, last seen near mile marker 212. I drove past that spot a few days later during daylight this time. I slowed down, heart racing. On the side of the road near where I'd picked him up, someone had set up a small cross and a faded photograph. The photo matched the one in the article. I don't know what I picked up that night. I don't even know if it was ever alive. But I haven't driven at night since. And if you ever find yourself alone on a desert highway and see a hitchhiker walking calmly under the moonlight, keep driving. Some rides aren't meant to be given.
Everybody like and subscribe, praise the bell icon. Story number 4.
It was late October, and Darren had just finished a grueling 12-hour shift at the small-town mechanic shop where he worked. The roads between his job and home were mostly rural, empty stretches of dark highway that twisted through pine forests and decaying farmland. He normally didn't mind the drive, but something about that night felt heavy. The air had a stillness to it, like the trees were holding their breath. Around 1:40 a.m., just past a bend near an abandoned grain silo, Darren spotted a figure on the side of the road. It was a woman in a beige trench coat, thumb out, barely illuminated by his high beams. At first, he thought she might have been a trick of the shadows, but as he slowed down, he could see her clearly. She looked to be in her mid-30s, damp hair clinging to her face, her expression blank. Against his better judgment, he pulled over. Maybe it was guilt. No one should be out here this late, not in the cold. She didn't say a word when she got in, just nodded and stared out the window. Darren asked where she was heading. She whispered something that sounded like Mill Hollow, a name he recognized. It was a dead mining town, abandoned decades ago. No one lived out there anymore. Still, he didn't press. He figured maybe she was visiting family or had gotten lost. As they drove, Darren noticed how stiff she sat, arms at her sides, hands clenched, not moving an inch. She didn't blink much either. The radio crackled with static, even though it had been working fine earlier. He turned it off. The deeper they got into the woods, the more uneasy Darren became. Every time he glanced at her, she seemed different. Her head tilted ever so slightly. Her mouth was too tight. At one point, he thought he saw her eyes moving independently, one focusing ahead and the other slightly to the side. He blinked and looked again, and they were normal. Around the edge of the forest, she suddenly asked, "Do you believe in second chances?" Her voice was dry and cold, like wind through a grave. Darren stammered something like, "Yeah, I guess," but she didn't respond. 10 minutes later, they reached the turnoff to Mill Hollow, but the road was blocked with rusted gates and a rotted wooden sign. He looked over to ask what she wanted to do, and she was gone. No door opening, no sound, no movement, just gone. His passenger seat was soaked, not just damp, completely wet. And on the dashboard, drawn in the fogged-up glass, was a crude, childlike face, wide eyes, huge mouth, no nose. He threw the car into reverse and got out of there, heart pounding like a drum. When he got home, he didn't sleep. He just sat on the couch, lights on, staring at the front door. The next day, he told a coworker about the ride. The guy went pale and asked if she'd been wearing a beige coat. Darren nodded. The coworker pulled out an old news article from a stack he kept in his locker. 22 years ago, a woman named Lillian Weaver had gone missing while walking home from a failed job interview in Mill Hollow. Her body was found in the woods, soaked from the rain, eyes wide open, mouth stretched unnaturally. No one was ever arrested. After that night, Darren started locking his car, even while driving. But sometimes late at night, he'd catch a glimpse of someone in the rearview mirror, just for a second, sitting silently in the back seat. And every time it rained, the passenger seat would be wet again.
Everybody like and subscribe, praise the bell icon. Story number 5.
It was late October when Jake, a 27-year-old traveling from Montana to Colorado, decided to take the back roads instead of the interstate. He liked the isolation, the quiet, the way the dark trees seemed to lean in toward the cracked pavement. His friends had always called him a loner, the kind of guy who liked solitude a little too much. That night, the air was crisp, the sky moonless, and the only light came from his truck's high beams cutting through the fog. Around 1:30 a.m., somewhere near the Wyoming-Colorado border, he spotted someone on the shoulder, a figure standing still. As he got closer, he saw it was a woman, thin, barefoot, with a torn dress clinging to her as if it were soaked. Her long black hair hung in wet ropes over her face. She didn't wave, didn't move, just stood there staring toward the road. Jake slowed instinctively. He was used to helping stranded hikers or people who had car trouble in the middle of nowhere. He rolled his window down and leaned toward the passenger side. "You okay?" he asked. His voice cut through the silence. She nodded slowly, but didn't speak. "You need a ride?" Another nod, no words. He hesitated, then reached over and opened the door. She climbed in silently, her bare feet making no sound on the floor mats. Her skin was ice cold when she brushed against him. She didn't smell of sweat or dirt, but of wet leaves and something metallic. He tried to make small talk. "Where are you headed?" She just pointed down the road, her fingernails blackened as if bruised. He shrugged and kept driving. 15 minutes passed in silence before he noticed something strange. Her dress wasn't just torn. It was stained, dark, almost black in spots. Dried blood? He glanced over, trying not to make it obvious. "You sure you're all right? Do you want me to take you to a hospital?" No response. Then she turned her head slowly and looked him in the eyes. Her face was pale, her lips cracked, but her eyes, there was something hollow about them. Empty sockets with just a hint of movement inside, as though something else was watching him from deep within. Jake nearly drove off the road. He slammed on the brakes, heart thundering in his chest. "What the hell?" She just sat there, staring. "I think you need to get out," he said, trying to sound firm. She didn't move. He reached across to open the door, and she grabbed his wrist. Her hand was so cold it burned. He froze. Her lips parted. "He left me here," she whispered. "He buried me in the trees." Jake pulled his hand back and jumped out of the truck. He stood on the road, panting, sweat running down his back despite the cold. When he worked up the courage to check the passenger seat again, she was gone. The door hadn't opened. There were no footsteps on the dusty roadside. Nothing. For the next few miles, he drove like hell, heart racing, eyes wide. He just wanted to make it to a gas station, somewhere with lights and people. About 20 minutes later, he finally saw one. An old rundown place with flickering lights, but it was open. He pulled in and rushed inside. An older man stood behind the counter, watching him. "You look like you've seen a ghost," the man said. Jake tried to laugh, but it came out hoarse. "I might have. Picked up a hitchhiker back there, woman in a torn dress, weird eyes." The man's face went pale. "Did she say anything?" Jake nodded. "Said someone left her, buried her in the trees." The man backed away a step. "You weren't supposed to stop. They all say that. Same spot, same girl. Been happening for 20 years. Jake left without saying another word. He never took back roads again.